Hello, everyone. My name is Adija. Welcome to the Millennial Social Worker channel. On this channel, I share content about social work, mental health, wellness, lifestyle, and everything else in between because a millennial social worker is multifaceted. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Chantelia Johns. Dr. Johns is a licensed clinical social worker, a mental health prevention educator, and a certified child and adolescent trauma professional. Her work includes understanding the neurobiology of trauma and the social determinant of poor mental health among urban African American youth from adolescence to early adulthood. In addition to this work, Dr. Johns studies the use of risk reduction interventions in educational settings. A significant focus of her work has been to understand the risk and protective factors for developing a mental illness en route to intervening before a college student leaves their planned program because of an emerging mental health concern. I am so excited to have Dr. Johns with us here today, and without further ado, let's get right into the discussion with her. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. As I stated, we have a fantastic human being, fantastic social worker here with us today, Dr. Chantelia Johns, and she's going to be sharing her social work journey with us, as well as giving us some tips how to get into the field of social work that she currently practices in. Welcome, Dr. Johns.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the work that you're doing, so I count it a privilege to be able to come here and share my story with your audience.
Welcome. So excited to have you. So we're just going to jump right in. Tell us a little bit about your educational background. How did you get to become Dr. Johns?
Well, it started with growing up in the city of Detroit. I'm proud of that because that has taught me a lot. Going to Detroit public schools my entire childhood was its own learning experience, but it also prepared me for when I got into college and wanting to study social work. So I got my bachelor's and my master's degree in social work. And then I pivoted a little bit because I wanted to make an impact in education settings. So I decided to get my doctorate degree in education.
All right. Okay. So tell us about your education journey. So it sounds like you got your BSW first. Did you wait a little bit in between before you went to get your master's? And what was the time frame in between all of those degrees?
So straight from high school, interestingly enough, I still remember the summer before going to college. So I went straight from high school to Wayne State. And originally, I was going to study psychology because I always knew that I wanted to provide support to individuals regarding their mental health. So I ended up meeting a group of social work students, and they invited me to one of their meetings. They were like a student group. So it was the Association of Black Social Workers student group.
Okay.
And I don't know how we connected, but it was meant to be because I met them on campus and they invited me to one of their meetings. And that's when I knew that, the more I got involved with them and saw the mission of social work, volunteer with them, I knew that I wanted to change from psychology to social work. Okay. So I switched over and got my bachelor's degree in social work in 2007 and my master's degree in social work in 2008. So straight
awesome.
Through.
And then your doctorate was?
That took some time. I guess it was 10 years later.
Oh, wow.
I think it was 10 years later. I went, and that journey came about. So in between my master's and my bachelor's degree, I got a graduate certificate in college and university teaching. Because working in the academy, you're exposed to all those different areas, from teaching to academic staff, residence life, janitorial services, so the whole systems that make up higher education. But for me, seeing professors and how they inspired learning really inspired me, and I decided that I wanted to teach as part of my career. So in between my bachelor's and my doctorate degree, I went and got a graduate certificate in college and university teaching, as I stated. And that helped me understand learners and how people learn and what are some tips and tricks for the best college professors.
Mm.
So after that, finishing that, it was like a 12 semester, no, 12 credits. So 12 credits. So it was relatively quick. I knew I wanted more. So that thirst for learning grew, and wanting to impact college students more. So my desire to want to impact college students more from a teaching aspect grew. And I was going to continue and get like a doctorate in learning design and technology. But honestly, they said I had to take the GREs, and I was like, let me see what else is out there. So then I ended up meeting with an advisor and getting accepted into the educational leadership and policy studies. And so that's where I was at for 3 years while I completed my doctorate degree.
Okay, awesome, awesome. That's a good point to note that there's some doctoral programs that don't require you to have a GRE, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good point to note. All right. So in regards to social work, right? And you work in higher education. So what is your social work specialty? Because you're a non-traditional social worker. There aren't a lot of social workers that do what you do, and part of the reason I created this channel was for other people to be able to see what else is out there. Social work does not fit into any type of box, so I want you to talk a little bit about your social work specialty.
Sure. So I got interested in higher education as a social worker, actually in my MSW program. I took a course, an elective course called Social Work Careers in Higher Education. The professor organized the course where it was like, I think it was 3 major assignments, and they focused on the students creating projects that would impact some form of higher education. So whether it was student success, financial aid, admissions. So in that course, so a part of those projects, in addition to getting a grade, she said that she would always pick like a few of the best projects. My first project was looking at college access and financial aid. To my surprise, that professor, that course, picked my project as like one of the best in the class, and I was like, what? And it was not only that project. I think I didn't get the second one, but the third one she picked mine again, and I was like, okay, it's something here, something here with higher education and how I see things. So that class really sparked my interest for wanting to work in higher education, but not really ever imagining that it would get to where it is today. After after that, and that was actually coupled with still being active with the Association of Black Social Workers once I got into the program. So my student involvement plus taking that course and being selected as like someone who was a thinker around higher education sparked my interest for wanting to work in the academy. But again, not even seeing the magnitude of where it has taken me as of today. I worked a little bit in child welfare before I got a call from that same professor who told me it was a position within the School of Social Work, and she encouraged me to apply. And there goes my story into higher education.
So that's awesome. And the importance of, networking and staying in touch with your networks, right? It's one thing to network, it's another thing to maintain those relationships. So when opportunities come, they think about you and they contact you. So that's awesome. Dr. John, so you were talking a little bit about your work in higher education. I want to find out, when I was in my doctoral program, a lot of things, what we had to do was break down what social issues you wanted to focus on. As you already know what my social issue is, I wanted to find out about you. What social issues are important to you in higher education?
So, a few issues, but mainly working as an academic advisor for about 8 years. About 8 years. I got to meet hundreds of students and hear their stories, and those stories included struggles in terms of being able to remain in college. Some of the struggles, of course, were related to academics. Other struggles were related to cost of higher education. But then there was also this set of students who struggled because of mental health issues. So what we call in the academy, those non-academic variables. Those were the stories and those were the students that really touched me in terms of wondering what can we do in higher education to avoid a student leaving their planned program because of an emerging mental health concern. So studying mental health as it relates to college students is something that I began to focus on a lot, even before I got my doctorate degree. I at the time was doing mental health trainings on campus to educate students, faculty, and staff about mental health. Because what I found was a lot of people in the academy, if they were outside of the counseling center, really didn't see how mental health was impacting academic success. So I kind of decided that was going to be my mission, was to educate folks who did not have those social work or any of those mental health related degrees. I wanted to be able to educate them on mental health, and not just what it is, but how they can respond to a student and connect them to resources. And so that led to a few research projects I was a part of with some colleagues within the counseling center on campus, where we were able to get funding to provide trainings on campus and reach, I think we're well over 1,000 students at this point. So I kept that same research interest even when I started my doctoral program in education. And I have to admit, in my program, I was like the only one thinking about higher education from a social work perspective, from a mental health perspective. I was the only social worker in that class. So sometimes I felt outside, because I'm like, yes, financial aid issues and access to books is important, but, because I have a social work background, this is important to me. So that passion for wanting to help college students with mental health concerns stayed with me. Actually wrote my dissertation around in which I teach faculty staff how to respond who has an emerging mental health concern. And I still continue to do that work today.
Yeah, so the social work perspective always gives us like a unique lens to approaching things that I think that other professions may not necessarily have. I mean, I know that I'm biased with that statement, but yeah, it just gives you a different perspective. We're able to look at the biopsychosocial level of functioning of people, in whatever setting that they're in. So that's pretty cool. So, Dr. Johns, another question that I wanted to ask is, what do you want people to know about social work? There are a lot of students and social workers that are on this platform and engage with a lot of the content that I put out. So I want to hear from you, someone that has been in this field, for a very long time, what you want future social workers or even current social workers that are looking to pivot, what do you want them to know about social work?
Good question. I want people to know that social workers are everywhere. I always tell my students that, a very simple statement, in that wherever you see people, you see social workers. We're able to influence individuals, families, groups, and communities in so many ways that I think a lot of people don't know. Social work's core values are some things that I think a lot of people can connect with, but without the knowledge of it, they may not see themselves as a social worker. For example, I know lots of people who are interested in service, so servicing others, and especially during the times in which we're living in now, we're interested in social justice issues. And that's a really big hallmark of social work, is that we look to address social injustices. So if your listeners out there who are interested in challenging some injustices that they see within their communities, then social work is definitely right for them. Some of the other core values, well, there's 6 total, but I won't go over all of them.
Right.
Some other ones look at the dignity and worth of a person. We look at the importance of human relationships, which again, thinking about where we are with the pandemic, social workers can really begin to advocate for maybe access to technology so that people can be able to interact with others more, because we recognize that social isolation can be just as deadly as some of these other major health concerns. Because we're designed to be interactive with each other, and social workers, as one of our core values, see that as being important, and that we encourage our clients to remember those relationships, and if they're healthy ones, see them as a strength, see them as a source of support and part of your recovery or part of your journey. So social work, and then on a larger scale, social workers, and this is what I believe really sets us apart from other majors, and that's because that is when we look at the person and environment perspective. So a social worker knows that it's more to the person's story than what we may see in front of us. And we know that we are more than just one identity. So we are brothers and sisters and church members and in schools and friends. So we recognize those systems in a person's life, and depending on the area of practice, you may look at the person's systems as a source for change or a source of strength for that person. And that's really the beauty of social work, because we have this holistic perspective, or this holistic ideology with regards to how we see people and how we see their stories.
Good. Yes, that's awesome. So you guys heard it from Dr. Johns. Another thing I wanted us to go back a little bit, because I don't know that it was clear. In higher education, what specifically do you do? What is your job title, quote unquote? Like, for example, if a social worker is out there looking for a job in higher education, what kind of job titles do social workers hold in higher education?
So social workers can hold quite a few jobs, and then I'll get to what I do.
Okay.
Social workers, so most higher education settings have a counseling office where they support students who have emerging mental health concerns. So you can find social workers there. I literally don't even know how long I've been working in higher education. So for over 8 years, I spent time working as an academic advisor in social work in the School of Social Work. And that, was a different type of social work, but it's still, thinking about those core values, we still had to use a lot of that when we were working with students. So being able to support students as they move through their educational journey. So that's an area of social work that, I utilize my degree in social work in that area. And that's like a part of my journey that I think really helped me understand social work more, because when you're hearing students' stories from so many walks of life, but they all have this common goal of wanting to get their degree, using your social work skills in that space can be really impactful. So I spent time working as an academic advisor. Then once I got my doctorate degree, I moved over to becoming the director of continuing and interprofessional education for the School of Social Work. And I'm also faculty. So I teach more classes than what I taught originally. Because when I was an advisor, I also taught a class too. But once I got my doctorate degree, I moved over to more full-time faculty, and then I got an administrative appointment to become the director of continuing and interprofessional education.
Okay, so you have two roles that you're playing right now in the
Yeah.
higher education. Okay, cool. That's awesome. In what way do you believe that you are making a difference in the world as a social worker?
Couple of ways. In my time as an academic advisor, I'm hopeful that I was able to impact college students as they move through higher education and becoming social workers.
Right.
Also, now in my new role, I'm mainly working with alumni. So being able to offer them educational opportunities that challenges them in their role or encourage them to further learn about different practices, evidence-based practices. Hopefully that's impactful to them. And more importantly, the work that I do around mental health, both on campus and within the community, I'm hopeful that is making an impact in the lives of those who hear me talk about mental health, tell stories about those who have found recovery.
Mhm.
And in that way, again, my story is still being told, but
Right,
in that
exactly.
way, I hope that when people think of Chantelia, they think of someone who has done good deeds, is
Mhm.
kind and full of thankfulness. And so my story is still being told, but I hope
Yes.
that's what people see when they see me and they think of me and they think of the work that I do.
Yeah, so Dr. John said the journey continues, and she hopes to continue to touch lives as she's going through her own journey as well. That's awesome. That's awesome. I wanted to ask you, what projects are you working on that you would like to tell us about? Just anything else that you want to talk about?
Sure. I am excited to be working on a project with an organization called the Union. So it's YUNION. It's
Okay.
in Detroit in the Hope Village community. I'm working on a project with them to do some evaluation work. They provide in school and out of school programming for adolescents in Detroit. And I've worked with them on and off for about 5 years, but just officially got funding to provide evaluation on a couple of their programs. So again, thinking about that impact, um, having having the opportunity to provide evaluation work where they can see, the change that they're making in the community is something that I'm super excited about and very thankful that I was able to get that opportunity to work with them. So that's something. So that's something I'm doing now that I'm like super excited about. But I
Yes, that's
actually love
awesome.
community work, even
Yeah.
though my social work journey hasn't taken me there per se. I like being out in the community and I like working with nonprofits. So having this opportunity gives me a chance to use my social work skills in a way that's also a passion of mine, which is community work.
Awesome, awesome. And yes, from one social worker to the other, happy social work month. Okay.
Yes. Oh, yes. Happy Social Work Month.
It's coming up just in a day or so. Yes, happy social work month. Thank you so much, Dr. Jones, for spending some time with us today and sharing your journey in social work with us. We appreciate you. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much again. And I hope that your platform continues to grow because you're doing so much great work in
Thank you.
regards to letting people know social work is such a great field. And these are the different areas that you can work in. So I'm proud of you and I'm pray that your work continues to grow.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Johns, for spending some time with us here today. I learned a lot about what you do in your field of social work. Thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed to this channel, please be sure to click on the subscribe button. You can also stay connected with me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @millennial_social worker. Thank you so much for joining me again today. And I'll see you next time on my next video. God bless you and take care. Bye.